Okay, this is a trade recap from yesterday, and I think in one picture you can see um, what the trade is like, what went well and what did not go well. Yeah, let's just move back to where it all started, and that was price dumping like crazy. So if I put this on auto, you can see that at London low, here was US Open, it manipulated, took out some levels. I'm still trying to see if I can trade levels like this and then just trade them downwards, and then it immediately sold off, created a 15-minute gap. I marked these out, of course, after last day's mistakes of not drawing out the M15. Price started chopping about, it took Asia low, and then it was chop, 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 chop. For me, nothing interesting to trade off, even though there were some lower time frame gaps. But as I mentioned before, in the last weeks, the gaps are just mediocre at best. Price created a bearish SMT because first NQ hit that M15 and then potentially sold off. There was a possible continuation model breakdown. Let's say continuation now to the downside, because the overall bias in the let's say the short to mid-term is bearish now, because we had some bearish change in the state breaks. But ES didn't, let's say, persist in that move, so there was no good setup here. It created a bearish SMT, and this could have been a good setup, but there were no gaps, so there's nothing to trade off from an IFVG point of view. If you trade change in the states, then there was a lot to trade from. You could trade this one, you can trade this one, but I don't just trade a change in the state, even though the momentum is quite bearish. Price just swept this low, swept previous day low, and ES was lagging. And for me, here, while the previous day low for NQ was taken, ES only took out that earlier low from the US session, and there was a 5-minute gap over here marked in blue, and I was thinking, okay, so if price is able to close above this 5-minute, then it's interesting to take a long into that 15-minute gap, taking out these highs. But as you can see, price tapped that level but rejected off of it. And I'm not sure if this would have provided, no, the gaps are just too small, right? These are really tiny gaps, and I think even on the 2, 3, 4 minutes there were not possible gaps or tradable gaps, and this one was also just a bit on the small side. So yeah, so unfortunately not clear enough price action for me. But it was clear that after this rejection, especially here, while it was going below this previous day low, we would go lower. So I started to run some errands. I will delete this because it's all not relevant anymore. Price started just dropping, and what I do when price just drops like this is continued selling. So it took out many previous day lows, a US low from an earlier day of last week. And then I get alert, and I'm not at the charts, but the moment this one got hit, I knew there was a daily gap below. And then it becomes interesting to me, because all these previous day lows were relatively close to one another. And what I do is I look at the news, is there any reason why price sells off? And to more or less get an idea, are we going to just dump straight through all kinds of levels, or is this just, let's say, a reverse to the mean after just going up only for days on end? And I couldn't find any direct news relating to why price would dump like this. So then I'm starting to look, okay, so what do we have in this move downwards? And what I've known by now is that if you get a V reversal, price can move up fairly quickly. But then I want to see, currently alerts are going, but then I want to see price hit a good low on both assets. So I'm not particularly looking for an SMT, but I want to see both assets hit key levels. So NQ was first. It was just front running the entire move, hitting that daily gap. So now I'm just waiting because I want to see price also tap that previous day low for NQ. But I also want to see a good reaction, because by now NQ is just grinding slower, and as you can see, there were no gaps, and there were no gaps on the 1 minute. There were no clear gaps. Let me just put this on. So there were gaps up here, but these are gaps I do not trade because I'm looking for a gap below. Let me just also put this one. So this looks like a reasonable, oh no, this is actually just a 5 minute. So the 3 minute also did not have any gaps. So this grinding slower is it takes out levels, but there doesn't give me much to work from. So the 4 minute is the first one that gives a reasonable level, and the 5 minute also does. So here we have this first 5 minute level, and there was also a 5 minute level here. But I also know that if you trade 5 minute levels, by the time the 5 minute closes, let's say you break through this IFVG in the first of 5 minutes, then by the time the 5 minute is done, you could be somewhere well up here, and you don't want to miss that move. So now I'm just more or less waiting to see, and I think I drew out this 5 minute as well. But I was a bit hesitant because ES did not make this 5 minute. So for me, it was an orientation point to see, okay, does price show any momentum to the upside? And as you can see, the moment ES dropped below this level, price started bouncing. And what you then want to see is you want to see sustained momentum. So I'm going to just take out, because otherwise it's just... So I want to see this level break first. And at first it didn't, so I was just waiting, but also not feeling very not confident. But I was just looking at it thinking, this does not give much. Because now you want to see a clean break. I don't want to see candles down, because that shows to me that price is actually quite weak in bouncing. And what you can see is that ES already went into this change of the state. This gave a clear change in the state, almost like a breaker, and that corresponded with this level, but was not really clear on NQ side. So I thought, okay, technically this is a break above, be it on the 1 minute, because but this was actually, yeah, so the 5 minute closed inside, but then there was the first 1 minute close above. And this was the point where I thought, okay, this is looking good, but this is premature. So I went in low risk because I was also looking, okay, this is the final move down before price started reversing. So I mark out my fib levels, and I want to see a move at least to the 50%, maybe to the 62 if you're lucky. And I marked out the same for ES to give an orientation, because if one of the two hits the 50 or 62, at least the 50%, that's a good point to take some profits. And the 15 minute actually corresponded, the lower end of the 15 minute corresponded with the M5. Now before, in other positions, the M15 gave really strong resistance to the downside. But this gap was so high that I thought, okay, if it can break the 5 minute, potentially we're going to mitigate the 15 minutes, so then that would not be holding down the potential of getting this 2R trade. So by the time within this candle I chased the move, which in hindsight is a break of model, because there was actually no let's say close above a decent gap, a proper sized gap, and then a retest. So I'm not happy with that, but I also saw the fact that this can move up really, really quickly. And it did in the beginning. So ES was showing the strongest momentum because it was already tapping the high of that M15. And I think the 15 minute of ES was already here. So as you can see, here also the lower end of the 5 minute was the beginning of the 15 minutes. So I was watching this carefully thinking, okay, so if ES is able to go through this 5 minute and able to hold above here and then move upwards, then I have more conviction or that MNQ can do the same. And here it dropped almost into entry, but I still had my stop somewhere below. I think I trailed it a little bit, but not too much, because I thought, okay, it can actually move back to that 5 minute, so I should give it some space. And by now my trade was well in profit, and it was within that 15-minute gap, as I mentioned. That was the lower end, and ES was showing strong momentum. So it was already reaching that 50% level of the move. So I started watching, and now price started chopping. And now I thought, okay, so I want to see ES holds in the upper end of that 5 minute, which is also the lower end of the 15-minute gap. And I had my first TP, partial TP, 55% on this level, because I thought, okay, I want to get out properly. And I was just watching. Okay, so price started chopping. And here it hit and broke that that earlier high, but I also saw that actually ES was not able to do it. And this is I think where I got a bit anxious, where I thought, okay, let's just, by now I trailed my stop to break even, and I started trailing my stop even further, I think to this low, because I thought, okay, I don't want to get out at break even, because potentially we could reverse here again and just create new lows. I think this was just a, let's say, analysis based on more fear of giving back returns, because I got stopped out here at, I think it was 0.45 or something. Actually 0.5. Okay, that's decent. I thought it's not decent, it's more. But I was thinking, okay, so do I want to give up? Okay, so it's nice I can take 0.5, because I was in max profit here 1.57. So I actually gave back 1 R in this move. I closed my trade, but I was thinking, okay, so if I would actually trail my stop to break even, the alternative is that price could bounce. I give back, price could bounce, so I could actually get my target here and then maybe my full TP or something higher, or I can just go in break even, taking into account that I did not really follow my my plan concerning my entry, but that would be okay, because at least I won't be losing any money. So I went out here. I felt okay with that move, and the moment price got up here I felt a little bit edgy again, but I walked away because I had to eat. And then in the end price just went to target with some violent candles, and I tried to more or less analyze, because I would never hit my break-even level, and I would have gotten out in full profit and even more. I don't know if I would trail this. I mean, this is strong momentum, so I think I would just sit it out and wait until we have the first down candle. But actually ES hit that 6.2 level, and ES fell barely short. And afterwards, I think price just went down. It just started chopping. Oh, it actually got higher. ES also took out at 62 level, but this for me is when I would scale out, because that is fine. This would have been a reward for patience. But I did not have any patience because I was a bit on edge, a bit anxious, fearful not to miss, let's say, not to give back profit. While I think honestly the setup was not there in the first place. So how would I look at this from a technical point of view? So it makes sense that we got some resistance here, but there was also just reason for price to bounce a bit more, taking into account that we have already dumped the entire US session. Because if you look at the entire US session, we did not even go to the EQ of that entire move. So my assumption is that we also would not do that for ES. No, we did not. So the bounce was just weak overall. So learnings from this trade for me is just follow the plan concerning entry. So this was not an entry. I mean, it made sense from a price action order flow point of view, but according to my model, I would not have gotten an entry because there was never a retest on the 5 minute. On the 5 minute, there were no proper gaps on the 2 and 3 minutes. So the trade setup potentially was there, but it was in the end invalid. So the only thing I can do now is just review and see if there would have been other entry points, but potentially. So this could have been a short. Let's just see whatever price gives me. So this would have been interesting, right? So, and this actually also coincides with the 4 and the 5 minutes. So if I just take out this, so that would be like the, if I just delete this, how would that correspond? Because if I go to the 5 minute, because the 4 minute actually does not have any singular gap. And to be honest, the 5 minute also doesn't really have. This is singular, but this is not really singular. So this would be more or less like this. Yeah, so this would actually be like looking out for trades or creating the trade which isn't there. This is a minor gap and this is like a bigger gap. If you apply serious mental gymnastics, you could say, okay, hey, resistance here, we break through, we retap that level, we go, but we then go back and bounce. I think I would have chickened out and just went out and break even here. Which would be smart. I mean, because would this have provided a proper setup? Yeah, it would have provided the 2R. I'm not sure. So I think in hindsight, the setup was potentially there, but the lower time frame PA did not really give me a proper entry according to my model. So even though it's profit, it's good that I got punished for going out early, because that is a lesson in patience, but also a lesson in conviction. When I place a setup, then just follow the plan. But even before that, there should not have been an entry in the first place. Good lessons again.